Okay, in this video I'm going to give an example of making a truth table or two, and I'm also going to I think I'll have time to give an example of using the algebraic rules to manipulate some Boolean expressions. Okay, the first example I'd like to do is to go back to the distributive law. Let's suppose we want to look at distributive of AND over OR. So I'm going to do P and Q or R. Okay, and the parentheses mean I evaluate Q or R first. That evaluates to another Boolean variable, and then I do P and the result of that. Okay, and the distributive law means that I'm going to take the P and I'm going to operate that on both the Q and the R, and I have to do those operations first, and then because there's an OR here, I'm going to put the OR in between. Okay, and this is what you have to do when you have ANDs and ORs mixed up in the same sentence. You have to leave the parentheses on. You can't just go P and let me fix that up a little bit here. P and Q or R. This is ambiguous, okay, so you don't do that. You have to have parentheses when you're mixing ANDs and ORs, but you may recall that if you have all ANDs or all ORs, you don't need the parentheses. Okay, so I'm claiming these two are logically equivalent, and I'm going to go ahead and prove that using a truth table. Okay, and because we have three variables, we need to make a truth table with 2 to the third or 8 rows in it. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make columns for P and Q and R, all three of my Boolean variables, and I'm going to go ahead and do a 0, 0, 0, 1, a 1, 0, 1, 1, and I'm going to do that twice. And I'm going to fill in the first half with zeros and the second half with ones. Okay, that's one way to look at this. And so you can see that I'm just counting in binary from 0 up to 7. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first evaluate the Q or R, and then I'm going to give myself a column where I can evaluate P and Q or R. Okay? Then, and that will get me the left-hand side. Let's go ahead and do that. Q or R. So I'm going to look at these two columns for Q and R. And remember, the OR statement is only false when both of them are false. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and look down here at these rows, and I'm going to see that there's only 2 rows where both Q and R are false. So both of these rows I'm going to give a 0, and all the others I'm going to give 1s. Okay, and now I'm going to take this column for Q and or R, and I'm going to AND it with the P column. So I'm going to look at this column and the one all the way back here. And this is an AND statement, so the only time it is true is when both of them are true. And so I'm going to look 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. 1, 1. They're both true. 1, 1. Both true again. 1, 1. Both true again. So it's on the last 3 rows only that I get true. And the rest of them, the other 5, were all false. Now I'm going to evaluate the right-hand side. So this is the left-hand side. Okay? To evaluate the right-hand side, I'm going to do it in 3 steps. I'm going to do first P and R. Then I'm going to do P and Q. I guess I could have done P and Q first because it was on the left, but it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to do P and Q or P and R. Okay? So P and R, this one, I'm going to be looking at the first and third columns, and it's an AND statement, so it's only true when both of them are true. And if I look at the first and the third columns, I'm looking for both of them to be true. Here I've got it here, and I've got it here. So second to the last and the last. That's where the ones are. and the rest of them are 0. Okay, P and Q. Now I'm going to be looking at the first two columns. And I need for both of them to be true. I have a 0 and a 0. That gives me a false. 0, 0 is false. 0, 1 is false because they both need to be true for an AND statement. 0, 1 is false. 1, 0 is false. False. And then it turns out that the last two are the true ones. The only ones. And then the rest of them were false. Okay. Finally, for the P or Q, P and Q or P and R, which is the entire right side, I'm going to look at these last two columns and I'm going to do an OR on them. And the only time the OR is false is when they're both false. But you can see they're both false for the first 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. And then the 6th, 7th, and 8th row, I have at least one of them being true. So I get 5 rows of zeros and then 3 rows of ones. And now you can see that we have proven that the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side because here is the left-hand side. The left-hand side is right here, and the right-hand side is right here. And you can see that these are equal all the way down. Okay, so this proves it using the truth table. And you should go ahead and do an example where you're doing the same thing with the distribution of OR over AND. So this is distributive. This is distribution of AND over OR. Now, real quick, I'm going to show you a simpler way of doing that truth table that has fewer steps. I'm going to make, first of all, I'll copy down what I'm trying to prove here. P and Q, or, so I'm taking the P and I'm operating the P and on both the Q and the R, separating the whole thing by an OR. I'm going to make a truth table where I jump right to the left-hand side and jump right to the right-hand side. And I'll show you how I do that. First of all, I'm going to fill this in. With my 8 rows. And what I'm going to do is underneath the OR statement, I'm going to go to the inside of the parentheses and I'm going to evaluate first from the inside out. And on the Q or R, I'm going to write the result of Q or R right below the OR statement there. And so I'm going to look at the Q and the R rows, columns here, and I'm going to do an OR statement on them. And so I'm going to get a 0, a 1. All I need is one of them to be true, and I'll get a true. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Q over R column and I'm going to AND it with P. So I'm going to be looking at this column and that column. And I'm looking for both of them to be true. And I don't have both true. No, no, no. Ah, last 3 rows, both of them are true. And so I get 0. And I'm going to put this column right underneath the AND sign. Okay, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle this column to mean that this is the column that has the result in it. Okay? I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to look at P and Q, and I'm going to make a column for P and Q right underneath the AND sign here. P and Q is only true on the last 2 rows. P and R, I'm going to look at the P and the R column, the first and the third. It's true only on the second to last and the last rows. And then I'm going to look at these 2 rows, these 2 columns, and do an OR between them. And all I need is for one of them to be true. And then I'm going to circle this column. And you can see I've done the same thing with a little bit less writing than before. There you go.